Hey everyone, Tyler with Leggari Products, and I'm going to show you what our concrete repair kits can do for you. If your concrete looks like this, spalling, pitting, flaking, simply deteriorating in front of your eyes, don't replace it, resurface it, and make it look brand new just like this. Before we get started on today's video, we wanted to let you know that we're on our way to 800,000 subscribers, and we've noticed that a huge percentage of you guys that watch our videos every week are not subscribed to our channel. It only takes seconds out of your day to press that subscribe button, especially if you enjoy this content. We launch videos every week so you can get notified every time there's a new one. Thanks for all your support. We hope you enjoy the video.
Okay, so we're getting ready to prepare the concrete for our 250 square foot concrete repair kit. Now, the first thing we want to do before we start pressure washing is we want to move everything away from the slab and the area that we're going to coat. So if this was a patio and we had grass, you know, if this grass was butting right up against the patio, we would actually want to edge this and just create a little bit of a gap there, you know, a little ½ inch to an inch gap, so that the overlay will actually flow into the grass, and then when the grass grows back up, it looks like a brand new slab. We don't have any grass growing, but we do have these rocks. So what we're going to do is just move the rocks out from this patio a few inches. So something like that, right? We're just gonna go along, we're gonna move them out a couple inches. Once the concrete has been coated, we're gonna move the rocks back. It'll look like a brand new slab, but we always wanna create a little bit of space with whatever the ground cover is right next to it. And then that's about it. We just have rocks butting up to this concrete and then the house. So we're gonna just simply tape this stuff off. We don't have to worry about any of this, but we want to do this before we start pressure washing so that we're not shooting rocks and stuff up in the air and trying to move them with a pressure washer. So I'm going to continue to move this rock and then we'll start pressure washing.
So I'll kind of walk through the pressure washing process. What we want to do is we want to remove any loose chunks of cement, right? It's kind of hard to tell in some of these, but you'll see once I start hitting it with that pressure washer, getting real close, like look right here, we got one here. That's going to pop up. Just popped up with my finger. So this is what we're trying to get rid of. We're trying to get anything that's loose, popped up, chipped out. So I'm going to run real close. We're going to be using a 4200 PSI pressure washer. That's going to do the best job. If you get a 36, you know, that's going to work as well. It just might take a little longer. So once I get all the loose concrete, the spalling, the pitting out that's going to flake off later on, we want to remove all that. I'm going to take this little wand here. It's going to attach to our pressure washer, and then I'm going to go through and clean the whole pad with that. That's going to go a lot faster than me trying to just hit every square inch with just the pressure washer tip. So I'll get the pressure washer started, throw on some safety glasses, and then you'll kind of see what it looks like when all this stuff starts chipping out. A few things I want to point out before we move on to just cleaning the slab is notice how close I held that tip to the concrete when I was trying to knock the spalling out. Now granted, this has been here for a long time, so a lot of those loose spots have already come up, but you saw some chip up even in the joint over there. We want to make sure we get all those up. So that pressure washer tips mainly for removing loose chunks of concrete, and then we use that cleaning wand to actually clean the concrete. And this is what it looks like. I pressure washed a line. So trying to pressure wash your slab with the tip real close would take a long time. That's why those pressure washer shrouds that we're going to show you now are vital for cleaning large areas. You can get those at Home Depot, or you can even usually get those in a rental place for larger projects. Again, this wouldn't take very long cleaning it, but we're going to show you how much faster those dust shrouds are going to work. Those pressure washer shrouds will. So I'll get that set up and then show you. Now that the concrete's clean everywhere, all I need to go around and hit close to the brick where that pressure washer shroud didn't hit. You can kind of see some lines here where it cleaned it. So this is clean. This is still kind of dirty. We want to address those. So I'm just going to go around with the normal pressure washer tip, hit those spots, and then we're going to blow everything off. We want to get this clean. We don't want, dirty water, kind of muddy water sitting on it and drying out, because that's just going to create a bond breaker. So we want to make sure we get it all off nice and clean, and then this is basically ready to start coating. And one last thing, once you guys have a section cleaned or your project, make sure people aren't walking on it, right, tracking dust from the yard or off the road. Just try to keep it as clean as you can. If stuff blows on it, like leaves, debris, stuff like that, just blow it off before you start coating, but you definitely don't want to get it dirty after you've got it clean. We're going to go over taping everything off. We want to make sure anywhere that we don't want that overlay to touch is taped off, plasticed off, papered off, however you want to do it. We've already started the wood here, or the brick here. the stones. And again, I want to talk about the tape. So blue tape's not going to stick as well to a sealed surface that's rough, textured, so we're using yellow tape. Anytime you can get away with blue tape, use that. It's going to make it a lot easier to pull later. It's not going to leave sticky residue behind. So we like to use blue tape on like metal, like the door threshold there that we did the blue tape on. Always use blue tape on stuff like that. Anywhere you're going to be stepping on it, try to use the blue tape as long as it's sticking good. If the blue tape's not sticking good, revert to the yellow tape. That's going to stick to rough surfaces, porous surfaces better. So if you come over here, you can see Tim, he's just taping off the remaining of our stone here. And notice how he's taping it high. You never want to tape to the bottom of an edge when you're going to be doing the coatings, because they're going to wind up locking the tape in. So even if these stones were going to the floor, like right here, it's touching the ground, but notice he taped high still. That way when we're done coating, we pull this tape, it's going to come off easy. If he would tape to the bottom here, overlay is going to lock that tape in, and you're going to have to cut this stuff out. It's really time consuming when you do that. So always make sure you're taping high, even if you have something hitting the floor. As long as you have a straight line and it's clean, it's going to look really nice, save you a lot of time when you're pulling that tape. So you really want to walk around, make sure you're getting everything taped off. Like we have the drain here. We want to make sure we tape that off. And taping off around radiuses is relatively simple if you do it right. I'll kind of show you what I would do when I tape these. I'll get it started, and then I just kind of mold that around as I go around that edge. So you just kind of keep turning it, and then when you get all done, you just flatten it off. So that's kind of how you tape around a circle. Real simple way to do that. And again, make sure you're pressing your tape down good. We want to get a good, nice and tight seal. So as you guys are taping and getting down on the floor, you might notice stuff like chunks maybe you missed when you guys were pressure washing. We have a chunk of, I want to say it's thin set, maybe from these bricks. We want to get this up. And then obviously we want to clean those chunks off. So we want to get any of those high spots off the pad, chipped up, make sure it's clean. So we're just walking around making sure we got the door threshold taped off, all the stones taped off, and then now we want to tape off this rain gutter drain, because anything, maybe I'll touch the trowel on it, right? We'll get stuff on it. Now we can wipe that off with a rag if we do, but it's just easiest to tape anything off that you do not want overlay to get on. Now remember, blue tape's your best friend for pulling up easy later, not leaving sticky residue behind. So try to use this as much as you can, as long as you're getting a good seal to it. Perfect. So now this is pretty much ready to go. So we're gonna come out here, we're gonna be stopping at this border here. So I need to tape this border off because we're only coating this front entry. And since this mastic is so tore up here, we're just gonna coat, and it's really low, so the material is gonna fill in there. So if you have mastic and stuff that's just deteriorated, chipped out, sunken down really low, don't worry about trying to tape that off. Just coat it. We just wanna make sure it's not high up, flush with the pad. We would want to tape it off then. I mean, right here, it's pretty much gone anyways. Notice how I'm taping kind of on the top edge of this other pad. And since it's exposed aggregate and textured, I want to go around and push everything down, get the best seal that we can. All right guys, so we have everything taped, ready to go. Next thing we're gonna do is we'll show you how to set up the mixing station, and then we'll start with that first coat.
So we're gonna mix up the first coat, the fill coat of the concrete repair kit. So what you're gonna need for this coat, and this is a 250 square foot kit. So you're gonna need one bag, the half or 2.5 gallons of liquid polymer, which will be half of a 5-gallon bucket, and then a liquid modifier. And this liquid modifier is half full compared to the full one that we're going to be splitting in half for the next 2 coats. So this is all you need for this. We're going to pour 2.5 gallons of liquid polymer in here, add the liquid modifier, and then mix it up with one bag. Pretty simple setup. We recommend a low RPM drill. With this type of kind of mixing paddle, you can get this at Lowe's or Home Depot in like the tile section. And then you'll see Tyler's going to be just using like a standard rigid trowel like they would use for sheetrock and putting mud on walls. And then we have a paintbrush just in case we need it. So first thing we want to do is just mix this up in case there's any settled polymer in it. Now notice I have a big container. We got this at Lowe's as well. Anything that's really flat on the bottom, flat on the sides, even a small brute garbage can will work. But for the 250 square foot kit, when you're mixing up an entire bag, it won't quite fit in a 5-gallon bucket. You can't mix it thoroughly enough. So you're constantly splashing it. So just in case you're wondering, it's really hard to mix this kit in a 5-gallon bucket. That's why we have a slightly bigger container. Now I can actually rinse this out and use it as a container to pour into. All right, now that I have this in here, we're just gonna blend it up slowly. We will add the liquid modifier. Now, the most vital part of this is you want the drill running while somebody is dumping in the bag of concrete overlay. You don't want to just dump in the entire bag and have a bunch of big clumps and everything just sitting on the bottom, because you may need to scrape the bottom. So while he's dumping it in, I'm going to be running this drill at a fairly fast RPM. It's also the reason why we're outside. There's a slight breeze out here. If there wasn't any type of a breeze, we would definitely have respirator masks on. We recommend wearing respirator masks as well. Yeah, notice Tyler's just gonna grab the edge, grab the side and just tear it open. You can use a razor too, scissors, but if you just tear it like that, it's pretty quick. Okay, now notice he dumped in the whole bag, so it won't be as dusty anymore, but now I want to mix it for about 2 or 3 more minutes. I don't want any chunks. I want it to be like a thin cake batter. This is how you mix every step. Right now we're doing the fill coat, but steps 1, 2, 3, you mix them all the exact same way. Okay, now that we've got this mixed up, Tyler and I are just gonna pick this up and dump it into 2 buckets and rinse this out.
All right, so Tim's got the product mixed up for me, so we're basically ready to go. Everything's taped off. We went over that with you guys. Now the next thing that's very, very crucial is we want to hydrate anywhere we're going to put this product down. And what I mean by hydrate is we're just going to spray water on the concrete, and that's going to soak in, and we want to kind of satisfy that concrete so it's not soaking all the moisture out of our overlay. So what I like to do, we kind of call it pre-hydrate. So I'm going to go around everywhere we're gonna coat. I'm just gonna kind of start pre-hydrating that, and you'll see how this is just soaking right in because this slab is very porous. It's kind of hot out, and so what I'm doing here is I'm just filling in the exposed aggregate border. We don't really have any spalling pits, chunks missing out here, so I don't necessarily need to do the first coat on this. Now when we get over to this side, this is really where all the main chunks, pitting, spalling has happened. So the concrete's really deteriorated. So this is where we'll be scratch coating the whole pads, including the exposed border. So I'm going to start pre-hydrating this before I even start. And we're just trying to satisfy this slab to where when we put our overlay on it, it's not soaking all the moisture out. And you can see I just sprayed this and it's almost dry again. So if we put that overlay on this concrete without hydrating with the water, it's going to give you no working time. It's going to get really thick, basically make it impossible to use. So always good to pre-hydrate before you even start. And then also while we're applying it, we're going to be adding water periodically as well. So now you can see the moisture, the water we're spraying's not getting sucked out as fast. And this is what we call pre-hydrating. Now we recommend doing these overlays when it's cooler out, maybe the morning, towards the evening when it's really hot, middle parts of the day. It's gonna take away your working time. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you guys are doing this when it's cooler out. Obviously being in the shade helps as well. I think it's like 90 degrees where we're at, so we're gonna have to make sure we are hydrating really, really well. All right, so I got the section we'll be scratching the whole concrete pad with. That's pre-hydrated now. As you can see, it's kind of wet looking, and then I pre-hydrated just the borders. On these borders, since again, I don't need to coat out here, I'm just gonna use a pool trowel. You can get these at Home Depot, Lowe's. And we're just gonna try to smooth these off. And then when I'm done, I'm gonna come back and scrape the excess up here so we don't have to sand any of those ridges down. And then we'll just get started. I'll show you what it looks like. If this slab where I'm coating starts to dry out on me, I'll just mist a little bit more water. So I'll just start out pouring some product down here. And since we have the rocks moved away, I'm not worried about it going off the edge. So that's all I'm looking for. That's relatively filling in all those low spots. By the time we're done doing our multiple coats, you're not gonna really notice any of that. And it's good to have enough people helping you, especially when you get to where you're doing the actual pads. This is kind of just like coating a border. So I can go back add a little more any spots that look really chunky still. And if you notice, I'm not applying pressure. I'm almost kind of being really light, just kind of letting it self-level itself. And now I'm going to scrape up this edge. So now there might be minimal sanding, if any at all. I took away our ridges out here. They're basically flattened off, feathered out. And then once this dries and gets hard, this will be relatively flat compared to the really rough exposed aggregate that's out here. I'm just hydrating out on this pad. That way it doesn't dry out the product that's coming out on the broom part. So you guys can see how fast it dries out when it's not hydrated as well. This stuff's already kind of hard. So I can just take the scraper that we're gonna use on the bigger pads and just knock any of these chunks off. That's gonna help any of the sanding that we have to do tomorrow, any of that stuff. Just try to flatten it off. And then we can blow that off tomorrow before we start. This one's still a little wet because we just applied it, but We'll try to get some of that scraped up as well. All right, so borders have that first coat, and just one coat really flattens those off. So now we're gonna work on the actual whole pad. So I'm gonna be using the metal scraper, just a large, thin scraper. They usually use these on like sheetrock, mud, stuff like that on walls. But we're just gonna hold it tight and just scratch coat, let this product fill in all these low spots. And then I'm gonna try to also use this out here as well, instead of doing it by hand, since we're doing the whole pad. And I'll just slowly let that flow over the edge. So first things first, gotta hydrate. So a few things I'll point out before we start. Now obviously this is a pretty jacked up pad. We wanted to pick one that was like probably one of the worst. You're probably not gonna run into stuff like this. I mean, these edges are just absolutely hammered. And these whole pads are just absolutely deteriorated. So good video to show you for tutorial purposes. But typically if you guys exposed borders were not deteriorated and spalling, you can just tape those off, coat up to them. So we could have ran tape here, piece of tape, covered the borders, just coated the pads, and you could have kept your exposed aggregate that same look. And then when you seal your overlay, you can also seal that exposed aggregate. So just keep that in mind if you guys wanted to keep that. Now we decided to fill them just because it's so rough out here. This would never look good if we just taped these off, so we decided to fill those. And then the other thing is we have some spalling right here. This is very minor. By the time we get done with our multiple coats on these, you're not gonna notice stuff like that. We're just worried about filling in really deep pitted out stuff with this scratch coat. So I'm not necessarily worried about scratch coating these, but stuff like this, really low spots, uneven out here, we definitely wanna fill this type of stuff. So now that my slab's hydrated, we are gonna start coating it. So I'm gonna just start up at the top and then work my way down. And I want to apply pressure. This is going to ride on all the high spots, let the material fill in all the low spots. If you guys have a hard time getting in these intricate spots, you can just take a paintbrush, kind of brush it in there and then pull it out with the scraper. But you can see it's filling in all these low pitted out spots and leaving a nice flat profile for us. So once I get this kind of corner done, I should be able to hit the majority of this with a big scraper. And it should go relatively quick. So now that we're coating the whole pad, I'm not worried about getting stuff on there, obviously. So I should be able to finish this out, the majority of this, with that big scraper. And if you guys are better at doing it by hand, you can also trowel this stuff out by hand as well. just want to make sure any of those trowel marks are out of there. Little stuff like that, completely fine. But yeah, so if you're better off doing it by hand, that's totally fine. It just goes a lot faster when you're standing up and doing it. And hydration is key, guys. Notice I'm getting to that dry concrete. I don't want to just coat onto that. I want to make sure we get some hydration there. And it's always better to have more people, right? I don't want to have to always stop, hydrate, stop, hydrate. So it's good to have someone hydrating for you. Small stuff like this, not as big a deal. Larger ones, definitely nice to have enough people helping you. And then our joints, we want to clean out our joints best that we can. Got a little over here, so clean this joint out this way. There we go.
So much flatter.
Okay. So another thing you guys want to make sure you're doing is keeping your buckets in the shade. Don't let them just sit out in the sun. They're gonna dry out and get kind of thick a lot faster. So always try to keep stuff in the shade as you're coating. I'm not worried about filling all that mastic up because our next coats are going to be done with the squeegee, and it's a lot easier to fill stuff in. So this is kind of just like a rough texture coat, filling all the low spots. Now when we get towards the end, I want to be pouring out smaller amounts. I don't want to have a big pile at the end that I got to pick up. So I'll just pour out smaller amounts as I get closer. So when you guys are done, make sure you clean your tools right away. That stuff's gonna set up on those metal trowels real fast. I got just a little spot there. I'll just dump a little bit on this corner. Fill that in. Let it kind of level itself out. And that's basically our first coat. So that's filled in all those low spots out here, filled in a lot of that exposed aggregate. And by the time we're done doing our next 2 coats, this should look like a brand new pad. And then, like I said before, guys, we're not worried about, you know, small stuff like that. What we are gonna do though, we're gonna let the leftover sit in a bucket and get kind of thickened up. And I'll show you how to kind of mold chunks like this that are missing in your edges, and even maybe some thick spots on our exposed edge. But we'll let that set up for maybe 20-30 minutes, get a lot thicker, and then we can kind of mold any of the really thick spots that didn't, you know, fill in as well. So like I said, when we were coating, guys, I was going to show you how to patch these deeper chunks, maybe in your expansion joints, maybe on your edges, anywhere that you have really deep spots where that thick material or the thin material, when we're applying it, wouldn't really fill those chunks in. So what we did is we just poured a little bit out on a piece of cardboard, let it sit in the sun, let it kind of thicken up. So now what we have is a lot more thicker kind of a paste. So I can mold that. I can really make it look like anything once I put it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hydrate this a little, and then I'll show you how to patch any spots like this. So we're just going to mist it. We're also going to hit this one right here. I'm going to get it on the edge of my trowel. Put it in there. Kind of move it around, and then we're just going to follow the curve of this hand joint. Now we've repaired that. Scrape off the excess, and now we have a perfectly patched chunk that was missing. This is going to set up just like everything and get hard. And then we'll also get this guy, so you can really go around and kind of fine tune any of those big spots that are chunked out. And then all I'm doing is just scraping this off so we don't have to sand that later. Now we have like a feathered edge. I can coat right over that, and you're not going to know that we patched that. So another spot is this edge. This is where the exposed was at. Up here it's not as bad, but here is really pitted out and chunked out. So I'm just going to patch these and help level this out. So I'm just going around hitting any spots that are really bad and kind of make them a lot smoother, fill them in a little bit better before we do our second coat. So same thing, we'll just get some product on there. And again, always hydrate. But once this sets up, you can kind of really mold it however you want. So I'm just trying to fill in any of those low spots. Maybe get a little bit more out here. And then what I can do Let's take a broom or a paintbrush, get a little water on it. We can just kind of smooth off this edge. And by the time we do our next coats, this edge will look a lot nicer than it would have if we didn't do that. Just feather out these edges. Just trying to get it like a feather edge so you don't have a height difference. There you have it. So we filled in a lot of stuff. You saw a big pile that I used there. So now that when we do these other coats, this isn't going to be as low as it was and should match up with everything else from filling it. So before we apply our second coat, before we start pre-hydrating, we want to knock off any of these chunks, any high spots that we had from that first coat. Like right here, we got kind of a lip. Just kind of flatten that off. And we can even get that big trowel that we were using, applying it yesterday, and knock some of these off. But we're just looking for any high spots. We just want to flatten out before we start. So I usually just run around, hit these like this stuff right here. And I'll grab that big scraper and show you, it goes real quick. So just gonna run it flat. It's good to just run through the whole thing real quick because you might miss some spots. Now we know all the high spots are scraped off in that area. And then we'll just blow this off, and then we'll pre-hydrate. Again, we want to pre-hydrate, get the concrete satisfied with the moisture before we start applying the concrete overlay. Now when you guys are blowing it off, obviously make sure you're not blowing right next to the tape. We don't want to be ripping tape off and having to re-tape. But so this is basically ready for the second coat. So what I'm gonna do, Tim's mixing the product now. You're gonna mix every step the same way. So you're gonna mix it the same way as Tim showed you in the first coat. So if you wanna kinda revert back to that if you have any questions on the mixing process, but they're all mixed the same exact way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start pre-hydrating. I'm gonna get this slab kind of satisfied with the moisture, the water, and then when we start coating, we're also gonna hydrate as we coat with the water. So this is just water, just spraying water to get this slab to where it doesn't soak it out and dry out as fast. It's gonna make us get a lot more working time out of the product. Always wanna pre-hydrate before you even start. And like we said on that first coat, we really recommend doing this stuff. Cooler temps, morning time, evening time. The hotter it is outside, the sun's out hitting it, the faster this stuff's gonna wanna dry out on you. So just keep that in mind. Kind of see where we sprayed earlier, it's already drying out. We wanna kind of keep it from doing that, and that's why we pre-hydrate. We just wanna make sure we don't have standing water, puddles, anything like that. Once that overlay material hits like a puddle or a really wet spot, it'll thin out. It'll kind of turn white right there because of the polymer in the overlay. Now you can see how much water I've been spraying on this, and it's still soaking it up. So if we were to just not pre-hydrate and start pouring and just hydrating as we go, you're gonna be wasting a lot of time, you're gonna be spraying a lot more water, and it's gonna be a lot harder to work with the material. So it's always good to get this concrete pre-hydrated so you're not running into that. Okay, so we got slabs pre-hydrated. We're basically ready to go. I just sprayed a little bit more water because again, we want to hydrate as we're going as well. We don't want this slab to dry out on us. And we're just gonna pour a bead out. I like to do my perimeters first and then kind of work in the middle. And I might even grab a brush to get in all those nooks and crannies of that stone. We'll see how that goes when I get there. So we're gonna just let a little bit flow over the edge so we can start coating that. I'm not worried about having mist spots there. We can come back with a paintbrush, clean those up. Or if you have a helper, he can be brushing that in as you roll it over the edge. Get it close to that brick, and then we're just gonna start cleaning it out. And like I said, if this is kind of tough for you, just grab a paintbrush and you can just brush it all in there. Might go a little bit faster for you. So take a paintbrush, get some product on it, and we can get in all the spots real quick. Again, whatever works best for you. We just want to make sure we get some product everywhere. And then I can just kind of flatten that off. So like I said, get my edges, and then I just work in the middle. Notice I'm applying pressure on the squeegee. I'm holding it at an angle. If I just hold this straight up and down, see how it's pulling a lot more material. So holding it at an angle, it's gonna put it down at a good thickness everywhere. And the crushed marble in the mix is what's putting it down at the same thickness. So it doesn't matter how hard I press down, as long as I have the squeegee angled, that crushed marble in the mix is gonna let it go down a certain thickness, kind of like a gauge rake. And that's why it looks so even. We don't have like thick trowel lines, anything out there. It's all nice and flat. So once I get caught up, I'll do my edges a little, pour some more product out here. Grab that brush, pull some of this out. So that paintbrush comes in handy for tight areas, spots that you can't really get the squeegee to. Works really well. And then I can kind of get this under there and clean that up. All right guys, now that we're kind of getting out in a bigger area, I kind of go over how to use this squeegee a little bit better here. All right, so when I'm troweling this stuff out in the middle, you'll notice I always keep that bead. I don't let it go past the middle of my handle. And what that does is it always makes sure it's pushing out towards me. Now, if I have this bead towards the end, see how it'll start to build up? Now it's pushing out there. Now that leaves me a section I gotta stop, clean off my squeegee, and come back and clean it up. So always, when you're troweling it out, just keep that product in the middle of the squeegee. It's never gonna push out the outer end. And then obviously, whichever way I tilt this squeegee, it's either gonna push product towards me or it's gonna push product towards the front. All right, so now we're gonna clean up our joint. We always wanna clean these joints out. This is what lets the concrete kind of expand and contract in colder climates, hotter climates, different temperatures. So you'll notice the spots we patched here, those chunks that were missing, you can't even tell that there was chunks missing now. So really cool process to fill any of those chips, chunks that are missing in your joints. Clean those up really nice. And obviously, coating up to jagged brick like this is a little bit more time consuming than if you were just had a straight edge to coat to. So it's always good to make sure you have enough people helping you. I could put product up there, someone could come in, start brushing that in with the brush while I'm working out here. Someone could be hydrating, right? Make sure you have enough people helping you. You don't want to be stopping. I don't want to have to stop here, cut in, hydrate, right? Make sure you get a couple people helping you. Have someone on the squeegee, someone maybe cutting in, someone hydrating as you guys are going down, applying the product. So while Tim's cutting that in, I don't want to just wait. I can keep moving product around. You want to be as kind of seamless as you can be, just non-stop coating and moving. The more you stop and start, the less working time you're going to have with the product. So we're in the shade now, so we haven't really been hydrating a lot. If you guys are in direct sunlight, you're gonna need to hydrate more. And how you tell if you need more hydration is if your pad see how it looks wet, it's a darker color. When it dries out, it'll go a lighter color in spots. You wanna make sure you're hydrating those areas, keep the moisture in that before this overlay goes over it. So just keep that in mind. If you're out in direct sun, you're probably gonna be doing a lot more hydrating more frequently. Now there used to be mastic in this gap here that's just deteriorated away. If you guys have stuff like this, you can always finish coating, seal it, tape off your edges right on each side, put some tape down, and then put like a polyurethane caulking in there. They usually sell that stuff at Home Depot, and that'll fill that up. It comes in multiple colors. That's an option to get rid of your big gaps if you have those, because we don't want to fill those up. All right guys, so what I'm doing here is, this was exposed aggregate. I'm trying to fill that in a little more. So instead of applying a lot of pressure, when I hit this outer edge, I'm just letting the squeegee kind of just glide on it. I'm not applying any pressure, and you'll see it'll leave it a lot thicker. Because if I apply pressure like everywhere else, it's still really rough. See how rough that is? So if I get some products here, and I just come through and just be really light, it's gonna help fill that in, level it out. But it's nice because this is our second coat. You're basically getting some practice with the squeegee, because it doesn't matter if we leave some drips out there, some trowel lines. We just scrape those off or we sand them off. So it's nice to get this coat. Basically gives you some practice on that squeegee. And then when we do our third coat, we're going to be using the squeegee again. And so you've already had some time on it, kind of got the hang of it. So this second coat's really nice for that. Very, very forgiving as far as maybe having some imperfections out there. We can always clean those up. Like I told you guys before, I wasn't worried about covering all the mastic here on that first scratch coat, but this coat, I want to make sure I get all the way up to the tape edge. So when we pull that tape, we got a nice, clean, straight edge. There's not missed spots. So we're just gonna make sure we go to that tape edge, and then I can clean that out. Now when we pull that tape and clean everything up, we're gonna have a nice edge there. Just using the tip of that squeegee to clean any of that excess out of under there, just like so. So a few things before we finish up. If I'm troweling out a bead and I see a spot out here I need to hit, if I just take this off the bead and come out here and hit it like this, I've dripped chunks out there. Now I have a straight line left from the squeegee. So if I want to clean something up like that, tap it, and then I'll come from an edge, either there, maybe a joint. Now I don't have any trowel marks, I didn't drip anywhere. And so you'll notice when we're squeegeeing, we're always patting these off just in case I gotta come out, because I'm not dripping anywhere. So just remember that, kind of get in the habit of tapping that. And if you're ever trying to fix something out in the middle of the slab there, just start from an edge and work into it. Same spot here, the mastic's kind of deteriorated, came out. We're not really gonna be able to fill that up, nor do we want to. So Tim just brushed that in. Now notice how thick this is, just because it's been sitting in the bucket a little bit. If you guys run into that, just take a drill, spin it, that'll re-agitate the material. And if I just kind of re-agitate it now, see how much more fluid it got? That's what's gonna happen if you just re-agitate it with a drill. So now it's a lot easier to work with. It's not real thick. And then same thing, I'm gonna go slow here, not apply a lot of pressure. Make sure we're filling that in the best that we can with this coat. And there we have it. So there's the second coat. We'll let this set up. This can take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. Obviously temperature depends on that. If it's in direct sun, it's gonna dry a lot faster. If it's in the shade, it's gonna take a little longer. But you can do multiple coats in a day. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to wait 24 hours. Once this is dry, we can apply that next coat. So we'll show you guys that next step when this is dried out. All right, guys, we're on our final coat here. Before we gotta seal it, a few things we wanna go over. Again, we wanna make sure we're hydrating. We're making sure we have moisture in that slab, so it's giving us more working time when we put the product down. Another thing, make sure we're keeping those buckets in the shade. And again, guys, try to coat this stuff morning. It's about 9 o'clock, so it's kind of cool out, sun's out, but it's still cool. Coat in the morning, towards the evening. You really don't want to be doing this stuff when it's really hot out. It's going to cut that working time down quite a bit. So we've already pre-hydrated, like we've showed you on those previous coats. Always pre-hydrate, and then when we start, I can just spray a little water where it's needed as we're going down. Spray it if we need it. But that pre-hydration, spraying this slab before we start and satisfying that porous surface with some moisture helps a lot when we are applying that overlay. So I don't really have to spray as much now, and then we can start applying that coat. Like we said before, every step you mix it the same. If you guys want to refer back to how to mix, just go to that first coat, watch that mixing video. But again, all these coats are mixed the exact same way, and they're basically applied the same way. So now that we have that second coat down, you guys have had some practice with your squeegee, so you should be pretty dialed in. And we're just gonna apply this the same way, running it right off the edge a little. And remember, we can always go back, brush our edges in if we didn't hit everything, if there's some missed spots or anything. So I'm not too concerned about coating that whole edge, because we don't wanna waste a bunch by just pushing a bunch off either. And then if you're going up against like your stone here, maybe you got all that jagged edges, a lot faster if someone just brushes that in, and then I just got to get close and then clean it up instead of trying to coat everything with the squeegee right up in there. So once he brushes that in, I'm just cleaning that up, making sure there's no thick spots, no missed spots, nothing like that. Now the easiest finish is just the squeegee finish like this. Gives you good traction. It's similar to a broom, but you just don't have the lines. If you guys want to see the broom process, how to broom, you can watch our 100 square foot repair kit. We'll be brooming that. And then also we have a 1250 square foot repair kit tutorial that shows the broom in that as well. So, but again, it's a little bit more intricate when you guys are brooming, because you got to coat this stuff, you got to put a broom in. If we're trying to go around pillars, right, front entryways, hallways in a front entry, it can be kind of a pain trying to get a nice broom in those. So the easiest way, just leave it a squeegee finish. It gives you a beautiful look, and it still adds that traction that a broom finish would have. Notice how Tim's not getting too far in front of me. I wouldn't want him to run down the whole edge, get that edge done, because by the time I get, you know, down there, it's going to start to set up. We want to try to work together here, keep the material wet as we're going. Nothing's drying out on us and getting sticky. And then I'm just constantly looking out in front of where we've already hit, making sure I don't have any trowel ridges, thick spots. And then if we run across any chunks or drips from the previous coat that are hard and I don't notice them, I can scrape those out, just like we showed you on the leather coat. Just run a scraper, knock any chunks, anything that's sticking up off. Notice how I'm always keeping a thick pile on my edges. You never really want to thin the product out like this right here. So that's basically running the product where you don't have any more. This tends to set up quicker. And then when I come back, if it starts to set up and I coat over that, it's almost like there's two layers there, and you'll notice that. So always try to keep a wet edge. We call this a wet edge, where we have a nice bead on that edge. That doesn't allow the material to set up as fast, creating that lip there. Make sure you're cleaning out your joints. You can see I need to get a little product here. Instead of pushing the product up there, I can just get a little on that squeegee, set it in there, and I can fill small sections like that. And just make sure you're hydrating as you're moving this stuff down, because out here you can tell, like right here, it's dry. We wouldn't want to go over that. So Tim's been hydrating for me as I'm moving, right? I would spray a little bit right here. Anywhere that it's dry, we just want to miss those spots. And again, pre-hydrating before you start is gonna make hydrating as you're coating go a lot faster, because you're not gonna have to spray as much water. Again, we don't want to go on dry overlay. We want to make sure it's got some hydration, some moisture in that, some water. Just like so. And we just keep going. Now that we're getting close to the end, we don't want to pour a bunch out and have to pick a lot up. So we'll be pouring smaller amounts out. I'll kind of trowel, squeegee this stuff out till it's almost out so we know how much to pour. Last thing we want to do is have to pick a bunch up at the end. So now we don't have a bunch we gotta pick up. Got the perfect amount out here. All right guys, so there you have it. That's step 3. We're gonna let this set up and then we're gonna apply the sealer. We'll show you guys that next. And then if you're gonna do your third and final coat, you wanna make sure you're able to put that sealer on the same day. We don't wanna let this sit overnight. Maybe it's gonna rain on it, right? We don't want it to rain on it when it's unsealed. And we also don't want, you know, people walking on it, getting footprints on it. So caution it off if you have to, put some cones up, but we wanna make sure we can apply that sealer the same day that we're doing that final coat. So before we apply the sealer, I wanna show you an option to saw cut out your expansion joints, control joints that you have, because what can happen is when the slabs are freestyle cycles, they'll move and kind of hit each other a little, and sometimes it'll chip out some chunks in here. So if we cut a thin saw blade right through using a concrete saw blade, that's going to give it that gap there so it can move more freely. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to be using a simple angle grinder, get them at Home Depot, and then just a simple concrete blade. They screw right on. I'm gonna cut it. Tim's gonna blow a blower to blow that away. I'm gonna wear a mask, ear protection, eye protection, and I'll cut upwards. It's gonna kick the dust backwards, and Tim will blow towards me, so it'll kind of minimize any dust. But very, very fast, very simple, and you can do this very quickly. Yeah, you saw how simple it was. When you guys are starting out, sink this down right in the middle of that joint, get it sunk in a little, and then just keep it sunk down all the way through, and that'll help you keep a straight line. And then we just blow it off and we're ready to seal. So you can do this as an option. And again, that just gives us some separation there for those free saw cycles when the slabs are moving. They're not hitting each other there. We're getting ready to show you how to mix our WB sealer. So I'll kind of go over the mixing process. Very, very simple, single component. These buckets, you'll just have to slit the sides, right? Because it's a pour spout lid. So if you can see, they have these little notches. You'll just take a razor blade, kind of slit those open, and that will allow you to pop this lid off, because we do want to mix this a little before we get started, just in case anything's settled in there. And we're going to be using just a paddle wheel, corded drill. I'm going to put it on low. Obviously it's pretty full, so we don't want to splash it around. So I don't have any buildup on the bottom of here, so it's probably fine. So we'll just mix low speeds, 20 to 30 seconds, and then we'll wash this off with just water. Easily cleans with water. That way we can reuse this paddle wheel. All right, so this is basically ready to go. We'll just pop that lid back on and then pull the spout off. It's got a little seal here we're gonna pop off. And now it's ready to pour in our sprayer. So things you'll need, just a drill to mix it. You can mix it with the stir stick as well. You just wanna make sure there's not anything on the bottom there. And then always good to use a strainer when you're pouring into sprayers, just in case there is something in there. We don't want to clog that sprayer up. And we really recommend these are just cheap Ace, from Ace hardware store, pump up sprayers. They work really good. They spray that fine mist, and that's kind of what we're looking for. So I'll kind of show you the process of pouring in. We're going to use that funnel, and then you can pour this into another bucket to get less in there, but if you tilt these backwards and pour out of them backwards, it'll pour out a lot more evenly. It won't start splashing. And notice how I didn't fill it up all the way. It's about right here. We want to, if you fill it up too full, you can't get enough pressure in there to spray it good. You always have to pump like every few seconds. So try not to fill it all the way up. You can hear that release valve go, so that tells me I got the max pressure I can get in there. And then we always want to test spray. So it's spraying at a stream right now. You want to get this spraying at a nice fine mist. Just like that. And we're basically ready to go. All right, so we're ready to seal. We blew the pad off, had a little bit of dust on it. Tim's gonna hold cardboard on the house, and we're gonna be doing 2 to 3 thin coats. I'm gonna pump this up as high as I can get it, as much pressure I can get in there, and then make sure we got a nice fine mist. And I'm gonna hold this about 1.5 to 2 foot from the surface and kind of just spray circle motions and then work our way out. So we'll just hit the house edge. That's what we like to do. That way the guy cardboard can kind of get out. So once you start dripping on the cardboard, get him off the pad, get a new piece of cardboard, and then I can come over here and just keep spraying until we get a fresh piece of cardboard out. All right, guys, so there's our first coat. We'll let this set up for about a half an hour until it goes dry. You can kind of see the wet spots still. So once it's all dry and dull looking, we can apply that second coat. Typically around a half an hour, 45 minutes, you can get that next coat on. All right, guys, so I'm gonna show you the second coat. We're gonna apply it the same way. And then once that second coat's dry, we'll do a third coat. We're not necessarily gonna show you that just because it's the same exact process. And then we'll show you guys how to pull tape, clean everything up. So we'll show you this next coat. And again, every coat is applied the same exact way. And you want to try to get 2 to 3 coats minimum. 3 coats should be perfect. After that third coat, it should all be evened out and everything should be sealed up. So same thing, gonna hit the edges until it starts dripping. And then you'll see, since we didn't cardboard this, when we pull this tape, you won't even see a line or anything from this stuff hitting that brick. All right, so there's the second coat. We're not gonna show you the third coat because it's just the same process. So what we'll do is we'll get that third coat on. We'll show you how to clean everything up, pull the tape, and just keep in mind, you really should be doing this stuff towards the evening. So we recommend doing your final coat that morning, right towards the morning when it's cool out, and then waiting till the evening to apply the sealer. That's gonna give you the best results. So final coat, third coat morning, and then that evening apply the sealer when it's kind of cooling off and it's not as hot out. All right, guys, I'll go over pulling the tape on the stone. Now remember, when we were taping it, we showed you to tape high, and you're gonna see why. You can see how nice this will start to pull because we taped high. If we didn't tape high, it would constantly be tearing, and we just have to cut this stuff out. So always pull down till you get to the bottom, just like that. And if you come over here, so that's pretty much it. Just go around, pull your tape. Now if you get to spots where maybe the overlay is a little too high or you tape too low, you can always cut that out. You would just take a razor blade, and I'll show you that as well. And this is just residue that pressure wash off. That's not from the overlay necessarily, so easy way just to clean that off. But take the knife, just cut a slit down there. Now we taped high, so we don't have to do that, but that's basically what you would do if you didn't tape high, and it can kind of be a nightmare. So make sure you guys are taping high when you tape, and you won't have to worry about that. Now the other thing is pushing your rock back. You guys can clean this overlay out, or you can just push the rocks over it. Now leaving that in there, it's obviously gonna act like a weed barrier. You're not gonna have weeds going up through that. If you wanna clean it out, just get like a shovel and you can just chip that out. Very, very simple, but as long as you dug it out enough, you can just throw your rocks back over, and then you won't even be able to tell that we had concrete down there. And then once it all gets cleaned up, it'll look absolutely awesome. So very, very easy way to clean stuff back up. And just making sure you push the rocks away, because if these rocks were left here and we tried coating it, we'd have all this overlay in the rocks. It would just be a lot of drama to deal with. So we'll finish pulling the tape. I'll kind of show you on the concrete here. You guys saw the brick there, pulling off the bricks. We'll do the concrete here. But it's always kind of the same thing. Start from the back end of the tape and move it forward. If you're gonna pull it all at once and it's pulling, just apply a little tension to it and it won't tear like it just did. But yeah, real simple cleanup. So we'll finish cleaning this up. We'll also show you the finish, the final footage of the project.